Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shantonia Lewis and I'm a qualified counsellor. I'm so sorry for not updating in a while. I just wanted to continue with the whole bereavement aspect. And again, I have my friend Bernie with me today. We're going to be talking about miscarriage and abortion in terms of grief and bereavement. So yeah, Bernie, just introduce yourself just a little bit to us so you can just be reminded of who you are, what you do, and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'll put your information below in the description box so people can see where they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Bernie, qualified counsellor, studied with Shantonia. I run my own private practice. I have a room based in Manchester, but currently at the moment with the pandemic, most clients are meet via Zoom, which is great that we've got that technology to do that. Yeah, I've been working in private practice for a good 18 months now.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for being on here with me again. It was great last time, and I'm sure we're going to have another, amazing, deep, insightful, just a little chat about miscarriage and abortion in terms of grief. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is understood as a miscarriage?
Okay, so there's kind of three. There are more than three, but there are three main kind of headings.
Yeah.
For baby loss and miscarriage. So there's an ectopic.
Yeah.
These are to do with the times that the baby's lost. So there's ectopic, which happens in the usually happens in the very early stages of pregnancy between weeks 5 to 14. There's miscarriage, which is a baby loss that happens up to the 23rd week of pregnancy. And any baby loss that happens after the 24th, from the 24th week of pregnancy onwards, is known as a stillbirth. So that's kind of the main sort of headings really that people are familiar with.
And they can, and the thing is as well, the good thing is they can identify with any of those three headings and, seek medical help and any other help available for those types of miscarriages. Thank you so much for putting that.
Okay, yeah.
So what emotions are, miscarriage, you lose a baby and people just think, oh, you lose a baby and you have to try and get over that. What kind of emotions are associated with
that? Okay, I think with baby loss at any stage, can bring a range of emotions, and it's different for every single woman.
Yes.
It can be the same kind of emotions that you feel from any loss. So if you've had a parent or grandparent that you've lost, and you can feel sadness and emptiness. That's a big thing with baby loss. Anger, guilt.
Yeah.
Some women feel worthless, and also for some women who've lost a baby at any stage, they can have real kind of feelings of jealousy about other women who are pregnant or have babies or have children. But everything that goes with grief anyway, that sadness, the denial about it, anger, and hopefully people get to a point of acceptance eventually.
Definitely, like even with the guilt thing, which is so potent, there's so many negative emotions that people may be thinking, such as like, I should be coping better, or I should have been able to keep the baby in, my body shouldn't have failed me. All those kind of thoughts.
That's a really big thing for women, that sense of I'm not good enough, my body isn't good enough, my body isn't doing what it's meant to do. I am meant to have babies. So guilt and worthlessness can be very, very strong kind of emotions that women struggle with.
And even shock too, because maybe a pregnancy may be going, really well, and then all of a sudden there's complications, and in some unfortunate events you lose it. So shock, probably thinking, everything was fine. there was no warning signs, nothing really happened for me to have been like, something's going
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah, and shock, I guess shock can be something that women experience, particularly if they've gone to nearly full term or full term,
Yes.
and say, that's when the baby died, maybe during labour, or just before labour. So but everything was okay. They might have just had an ultrasound scan the day before. There was no signs of distress. Everything was looking good. But they experience a stillbirth, and there's many medical reasons for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just awful, because again, you're losing a part of you.
Yeah. And that's really what it can feel like, because this child, this baby, has been growing inside you, and you've been nurturing them for however long you've been pregnant. And if it is 9 months is a long time.
It is
a long time to be holding and carrying another life.
Yeah.
And you may have done everything by the book, and you know that kind of follow the best advice that's out there, but it's complex why there are stillbirths. There's so many different reasons for that.
Definitely. And even go back to the emotions, numbness is also another one, like you stated in grief and bereavement before in the previous video. Numbness is very common, but like you said, I remember you saying that it's best not to stay there. It's okay to feel numb, then it's trying to sort of progress out of that, so then you can feel.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we maybe don't appreciate, or is not appreciated, is we all kind of, maybe we are aware, maybe we're not aware of postpartum depression. So when somebody has a baby, it's more than the baby blues. A lot of women suffer with baby blues after giving birth.
Yes.
And that's about the hormones being kind of, that they're all at different levels or whatever. But postpartum depression can sometimes occur with people after giving birth anyway. But that can also occur with women who particularly have lost a baby in the later stages of pregnancy, and that can become complicated, really.
Definitely.
So there's a lot of emotions that go on with that. Fatigue, irritability, all those we listed before, and emptiness, intense sadness,
and depression, anxiety.
Absolutely, all of those, and that's a point where a woman really does need to be reaching out for some help.
Definitely. Like, even if you can speak to your midwife or reach out to any counsellor, like we're here to help you and to listen to you and just guide you through your journey, which is so important. I was reading this BBC article, and it basically said 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in a miscarriage in the UK. Most happens early, before 12 weeks, which is interesting.
Okay, so and I guess, that's something that I was looking at before we sort of began this interview, is around what stats are out there, what's available. So for example, the NHS is saying that at least 1 in 90 pregnancies can end in an ectopic pregnancy. They put miscarriage, so that's before up to the 23rd week, as 1 in 8 pregnancies, and stillbirth in 1 in 200 pregnancies. If you combine all of that, there are hundreds and hundreds of women every single day who are experiencing baby loss.
Definitely. And it's such a high amount, and pregnancy is it's a critical, and yes, it's a beautiful time, but it's a time most where it's sort of dangerous in a way, because you can lose your baby or your health just goes completely wild, you know.
Yeah, and becoming pregnant is a natural part of us as human beings.
Yeah.
And we can worry about it a lot. We can worry about how well we're going to be, how well the baby's going to be. And in some cases, maybe if we've experienced baby loss previously, we sort of end up wrapping ourselves up in cotton wool. It's not always the best thing to do. There is guidance out there about from different agencies about how best to look after yourself during pregnancy, and particularly if you've maybe suffered multiple baby losses.
Yes.
But there can be many different reasons for suffering baby loss, and it's not necessarily about what you do as a woman. There can be just so many different things that cause that. So I think even if you have suffered baby loss, you have to try and live your life too.
Yes.
Appropriate kind of care, but you have to live your life too. Because wrapping yourself up in cotton wool is not necessarily the answer to keeping the baby safe. And it's not the answer to your own personal mental health well-being either, really.
No, because you want to kind of enjoy your pregnancy and just, you know, experience and enjoy every moment. And like you said, you know, yes, it's okay to protect yourself, but then to wrap yourself up in cotton wool, like you said, is not helpful in any way.
Yeah, one of the biggest things is engage with all those, and make sure you attend all your appointments with the hospital, with your midwife, you know, beforehand. Engage with all that care, and listen to if there's, you know, that's there. You have regular checkups. That's there to make sure that everything's progressing as it should.
Yes.
And to intervene if there is an intervention that's needed that can kind of help keep you safe through that pregnancy.
Definitely, thank you. I was also reading how with some women after they've had a miscarriage, you know, they wonder if they can have prevented that loss in any way. You know,
I think when you look at how frequent miscarriages happen, I think there's something about realizing that's part of how nature works too.
Yeah.
And we don't have a control over nature. And I think if somebody is looking back on that miscarriage about what could I have done differently, I think you can really beat yourself up about that.
Yeah, you can.
And that's potentially quite dangerous for your mental health well-being.
It is.
I think, you know, you can look at your lifestyle, and if there is something that you can improve about, there are things like smoking, alcohol, substance misuse that will affect the health and well-being, not just of you but of your baby.
Yeah.
So if those things are part of your life, then maybe look at that.
And even stress.
That is something that you can do something about.
Yeah. And even living like a stressful environment, also maybe try and take yourself into more calmer, or make your environment more calmer, whereas less stress for you and your baby, because that's not helpful either.
No, it doesn't contribute to the whole of your well-being. So you know, everything kind of has an impact. If you're looking after yourself as well as you can, then you're looking after your baby as well as is possible.
It's important. Another thought is that you worry about another pregnancy, are constantly worrying if you'll miscarry again, which is also a common thought when women do miscarry. They worry if to get pregnant again, if they're going to miscarry with that one too, which isn't necessarily the case.
No, it's not the case, but some women do have multiple miscarriages.
Yeah.
When that does occur, there's more intervention from the GP, from hospitals. There's more that can be done to investigate the causes of that, and to see if there is something, something that can be done to support women through that.
Yeah. And the thing is, because of that worry, they don't really want to, they're scared about getting intimate again with their partner or spouse, because they feel as though I'm going to go through the same situation again.
One of the aspects of maybe multiple miscarriages or baby loss is that there is something about kind of defects, not just with maybe the eggs from the woman, but also the sperm. And sometimes, I've not got a great deal of experience with this, but sometimes that aspect is not always considered.
Yeah.
And men can find it very difficult to sort of engage in, okay, well, let's check me out.
Yeah.
Let's check out what's going on with me.
It's true. I think because society kind of puts on the women anyway to like, it's kind of your fault, what are you doing, what are you not doing for this to work? And like you said, men do get left out and they don't really feel the need to check.
And sometimes it is something about sperm that there's defects in that have a cause. And not being a medical person, I couldn't kind of talk about what that is, but it is something that can be looked at. Really.
Yeah, definitely, so important. So men, check yourself out. There's another thought as well of feeling lonely and isolated. Some women, when they do miscarry, they feel as though they can't relate to anybody. No one will understand what they're going through. They feel isolated because they may see their family or friends having those kids, and they feel as though, well, they're not going to understand where I'm coming from with this. They just carry this alone.
Yeah, and that is really kind of one of the in the work that I've done and the women that I've worked with that have struggled with the grief and loss from miscarrying or stillbirth. That's one of the things that is a really strong factor, because particularly if people lose a baby earlier in pregnancy, there's an expectation that you just get over it.
Yes.
Well, it wasn't a baby yet. Well, actually, it depends on whether that pregnancy was a baby to you.
Yeah.
And my experience of pregnancy is, as soon as I knew I was pregnant, it wasn't a fetus or an embryo; it was a baby.
Yeah.
And that's actually something as well that I think some women may struggle with. If you lose a baby before the 23rd week, it's referred to as a fetus. A fetal loss and not a baby loss.
Yeah.
And that can be quite sort of disenfranchising.
Yeah.
For women. But if you are struggling with that, women just really need to talk to someone, and they need to let people know how they're feeling.
Especially to get the support from friends and families. They know how to support you a lot more better and find out exactly what you need from them.
Absolutely. And that's one big thing. Whatever stage of pregnancy that you might have lost your baby, it's talk to people, talk to someone.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Break the news about it if you feel you can't do that yourself.
Definitely.
And people can make comments like, "Oh well, you can always try again." Now, people don't necessarily mean to be cruel with that.
No.
and it's try to not take that personally, but I guess as someone who hasn't lost a baby, if you're in that position and you have a friend or a colleague who you are aware of that's lost a baby, try not to say that.
Yes.
Because actually it doesn't matter if you can get pregnant again. What matters is that you've lost this baby.
Yeah.
It's this one that matters right now. And we might not have the right words, but we can kind of express, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, because it is a loss.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. That must be really difficult.
Yeah.
And kind of leave it there and not look for the solution for that person.
Which is important. No.
I think that's the thing that's hurtful when people offer a solution. Oh, well, you can do this and you can do that. No. That's not what's needed. It's just acknowledgement of that loss and that pain that you're suffering.
Yeah, because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for you.
Not at all.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even like you said with the whole disenfranchising with the grief and loss, to have a funeral for the baby or a memorial or remembrance isn't.
Yeah.
It's not something that's done regularly, and some women may feel like, should I actually do this? It's not as if it's the death of a parent or a sibling, or it's a baby miscarriage. Should I even grieve like this?
So I think with miscarriage, it's probably not always possible. There's not always a baby there that you can sort of take and have a funeral for with. With stillbirth, there is often an opportunity that you're able to see the baby, that you're able to hold the baby. And there are some, I think when it's a stillbirth, there is a lot more active support around that.
Yeah.
A number of hospitals offer things like, photography of the baby. They're done very, very sensitively.
Yeah.
That you've got a photograph, and of course you can take photographs yourself, or the dad, whatever, can take photographs themselves. But there are some companies out there now that actually take some really beautiful and sensitive kind of photos of the baby. Often it's photographs that you see just with the hands and your hand, and they can be quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And that might not be something that everybody wants, but it might be something that people kind of consider and is kind of kept for maybe later, if that's wanted. But in any case of loss, you can do things like, put together a memory box. Think about the name. If you hadn't thought about a name before, think about what the name would have been to name your baby. There is some comfort in that, because it's acknowledging that was a person, that was a life. And I guess the next thing is like, when it comes round to birthdays or the anniversary of the loss, is be aware of when they're coming up.
Yeah.
And if you're working, maybe take that day off work.
Yeah.
Do something that honours your baby on that day.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And it's just a beautiful way, like I said, to remember.
Yeah.
And even during this time, it's very common for triggers, things to trigger you. Seeing a baby, hearing a certain nursery rhyme, for example, if you used to sing that to your baby. Different things can trigger you off, and it's so important to acknowledge and recognize those triggers.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely different things can trigger you off. And I think when someone, we all prepare the nursery at different times, and some people, but generally speaking, I guess people wait till later in the pregnancy before that's done.
Yeah.
But they want to have the room ready. They might have a particular mobile, or there's particular wallpaper. And coming home to that space where you're not going to put baby is very, very difficult. It's kind of being aware of that at the time of the loss as well. Do I want to change something about that, or do I just need to hold that space for the time? But you know, different toys have different tunes with them, don't they? And you have a friend or relative who's had a baby and you're visiting, and it's a similar toy and a similar tune.
Can trigger you.
You know, that may trigger. The important thing is if it does, and you're still in pain, or your pain has been triggered again, is don't be apologetic for that.
No.
You've got a right to feel that pain. You know, but talk about it.
And acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it.
Don't ignore it.
Acknowledge it. Yeah, absolutely acknowledge it. For sure.
And I feel like as well, you know, the fathers of the babies do feel as though, well, do I even have the right to grieve?
Yeah.
I just need to support. Like I can't.
So for sure, the fathers feel maybe not wholly connected, but everyone is every relationship is different. So every dad will feel different. And it's important for them to be able to explore what it is that's going on for them, and how they're coping, and how they're dealing with that loss too.
And find the support that you need.
It's part of them. It's part of them that's been lost as well.
Exactly, for sure. And definitely finding the support out there. You know, there may be support groups for dads who, you know, whose spouses have, you know, experienced miscarriage and baby loss, and how it's going on for you, how it's affecting you, and really speaking to someone.
There's more blokes out there than you realise that have experienced their wife or partner having had a miscarriage or stillbirth. And you know, it really is helpful. It really is helpful to talk about that. Majority of kind of support is there for the women, I suppose, but most of those sites actually do recognise that men are suffering too.
So I just have a question for you. What kind of coping strategies, healthy ones, I suppose even with loss, should you do to help you cope better?
So I guess it's sort of been covered in some of the other parts of the answers of other questions there. Talking always helps. If you're struggling with any aspect of your life at that time, just ask for help with that. You know, if housework feels too much, if going into work feels too much, then maybe you need to take a bit more time off work than you had originally planned. So go and speak to your GP around that. Reach out to your GP if you're really, you know, particularly if maybe if you're in that kind of depression. You might need some meds to help you through for a time. And that's okay. Then for a time, that's okay. You know, we access what we need, but probably talking about what you really feel is the best medicine. And if you haven't or are not able to talk to your partner, your family, your friends, then access counselling through one of the many kind of charities that are available there, or seek out your own counsellor.
Definitely. And there's also a thing called Baby Loss Awareness Week, which starts from the 9th to the 15th of October. It is every year or something. So again, that's also great if you lost a baby. You can reconnect with mothers and families who have gone through similar things.
Absolutely. For sure. That's, you know, that helps us all as a nation focus on baby loss. And so, you know, we can all be more aware that there are women struggling every single day with that.
Definitely, and to normalise it.
And yeah, to normalise it, because when you look at the stats on baby loss, it's actually really common.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it. It's hidden. And that's why sometimes it becomes complicated.
Yeah, definitely. So there are some support groups out here. I've got like a whole list. I'm not going to read them all, but I'm just going to mention a few. The rest of them I'll put them in the description box below. But you have some places like the Miscarriage Association, which is the top one for baby loss and miscarriage. You know, they have like leaflets, and I think they have like a helpline and like different you know, information that will help you during your time of grief and loss. You also have Tommy's, which is a charity that offers support and care for mothers on their pregnancy journey. And they also support mothers and families who have lost their babies as well. So again, you can just go to their website and they have information which is very useful. Cruse Bereavement Care. Again, mentioned that in the previous video. They have counsellors there you can go and talk to about your loss and bereavement. And again, it's very helpful. They also have the NCT website, which again, similar thing. They have like a support line, information about baby loss, even like any journey that you're going through, and they're there to help. SANS, they offer counselling and bereavement support, relationship counselling support for anyone who has been affected by baby loss. And so those are the few that I'm going to mention. I'm going to go through all. There's quite a few, but they're in the description box below. So I just want to move on to abortion in terms of baby loss. This is a very controversial topic, I know.
Yeah. So abortion is very emotive. And there's many different reasons that women and young girls may have an abortion. Sometimes it's not their choice to do that. Sometimes they're made to have an abortion. Sometimes they become pregnant and it was not planned. Kind of, you know, it could be through a traumatic incident like rape, rape, and that often happens. There's a really interesting case that's actually on the Mind website at the moment of a young woman who talks about basically date rape and the fact that you know, found out she was pregnant after a date and has no recollection of kind of consenting to having sex anyway, and definitely she didn't consent, but she ended up being pregnant, and she was really confused at first because she didn't realise she was pregnant. She ended up having an abortion. So there's an interesting personal recollection on there of that kind of incident. And the thing about abortion is that it is controversial because people can have very, very strong views, very polarizing views, and it's very political.
Yes.
It is very political. And young women who are maybe seeking out abortion and going, we see news articles sometimes of women or demonstrations outside of abortion clinics, anti-abortion, which are often kind of held by people with really strong religious beliefs around the preciousness of life.
Definitely.
And which is something that we have to respect. But a woman going for an abortion is not usually taking that decision lightly. It's very difficult and challenging decision for them. And actually, it's not a case of going to the clinic, get the abortion, and then it's all done. Those self-same women suffer guilt,
regret,
anxiety, regret,
shame,
sadness, shame, and often they feel they can't talk about it. And it remains hidden with them for many, many years.
Yeah, even with that, you know, they don't talk because they feel as though they're not going to get the support that they need. They're going to feel as though they're getting judged. They keep it to themselves. And then maybe other women who may be struggling, but then they feel like they can't say anything because the same thing. So it becomes like a cycle. You know, no one speaks about it because of the judgment that they may face, the shame, the guilt, all those kind of feelings may come back up again for them. So they just keep it to themselves and just hide it.
Yeah, and abortion, of course, is it's traumatic in itself, and you know, if it's a young girl who maybe, you know, just shouldn't have been having sex anyway, but so they have been essentially abused. They've already been through a traumatic incident anyway. Then they're pregnant, and then they're potentially made to get an abortion.
Yeah.
They're carrying the responsibility for others' decisions as well, and that's massive. That's massive, and it will stay with them if they have nowhere to take that and talk about it. And so it's, you know, and if there is regret there about the abortion, they're carrying that for the rest of their life.
100%.
And maybe say they can't get pregnant again for different reasons, or they have miscarriages afterwards. Then it's kind of loss upon loss, really.
So that's the thing with regret. Like sometimes it may not happen straight away as you think. It may happen straight away or later on down the line.
Yeah.
You may feel that regret coming on. Regret is a complicated emotion anyway in any loss. You know, it's just complicated, and especially when it comes to abortion with itself. And it's common in other types of losses too, which is also important to mention. And the thing is, a society, because we have this no regret mantra, you know, no regrets, no regrets. We even have a song of like a French song of like no regret, and I listen to it because it's great. But you know, again, it's like don't regret anything, and oftentimes we do. You know, in reality, we do regret things.
Yeah, and that it is a complex emotion, that one, complex for so many different reasons.
Yeah,
and that's really where kind of talking and counselling can help to be able to work through that. Because I think there's a reflection there that you can only make the decision you make at the time you make it. And you know that they were that person's circumstances at that time, and maybe they have nowhere else to turn.
Definitely. And the thing is, once the regret is suppressed, you know, it's detrimental, or if it's ignored, you just basically want to let it out.
Becomes complex. That's when the grief becomes complex. Is when any kind of feeling is suppressed and ignored, and you know, okay, I ought not to feel that. You know, I shouldn't be feeling that feeling, so I'm not going to feel it. But you feel what you feel. Feel what you feel. It's important to be with that, to understand it, to accept it, to acknowledge it.
Yeah, and it just helps with your grief process.
Yeah,
you know, you're not stuck with the suppression and keeping it hidden. You're actually dealing with it, like you said, understanding it, exploring it, and acknowledging it, which is so important.
The acknowledgement is a really big thing.
Yeah.
In all aspects of grief, is acknowledging whatever that feeling is.
Yes.
The acknowledgement of it is a key. It's kind of a key to unlocking the burden.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And even with the whole what women may be feeling during or after an abortion is isolation. And like I mentioned before, you know, some women may not be able to talk about it because fear of being judged. So they just keep alone, you know, they don't say anything. So they just feel isolated because they don't feel they can reach out to anyone.
No, and they you know, might be back in work, back in study,
Yeah.
back at home. They might have other children that they've got. I mean, that might have been a reason for having an abortion, that they were already struggling in the family situation that they had, and they couldn't imagine bringing another child into it. It might be that it's a toxic relationship, and bringing a child into it is not, just seems incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Whatever the circumstances, but you have your abortion, you can't talk about it, and you've got to go back to what your normal life was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard, but it's a loss
And
still.
it's hard, it's a loss. You've maybe had to kind of walk through one of these. If you've had an abortion at a clinic, you've gone through the demonstration line at the front, going in, carrying a baby, coming out, not carrying a baby.
Yeah.
And you've heard all that judgment about the decision that you've made. A lot of responsibility and a lot of guilt to be carrying on your own.
Definitely. Sometimes, well, if you're on your own, it makes it worse because you're just in this state of being like, yeah, I just feel so alone. No one understands where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
No one understands me.
No one understands me. I'm on my own with this. It might be as well that, and this is the difficult thing as well. I think for women who make a decision to have an abortion, is if their partner disagrees with them, disagrees with that decision.
It's a big impact.
And you know, that's complicated for the relationship as well.
Definitely.
And particularly if the relationship continues.
Yeah. You know, the partner could hold that against you the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
The cloud.
And that does happen sometimes.
Yeah. You know, it's just.
And yeah, that's definitely a cloud that's hanging there always.
For sure. Because it's not so, you know, it's not as if the person's going to allow you to let it go. It's just always just going to be hanging here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Another feeling, obviously, like I mentioned, is guilt. Again, it's a valid feeling that obviously follows with any type of loss and grief for different reasons. And with abortion, it's often intertwined with your spiritual, your political, your values, all that kind of stuff is just linked together. So the guilt is just there, you know, it's prominent. Before the decision, during the decision, after the decision, you're always thinking, you know, what have I done? Am I doing the right thing? Should I have done this? And the whole guilt sets in because all those aspects of you come into play.
Yeah, for sure. Guilt is a massive burden to carry, and particularly if your upbringing has been one where you know, a religious or spiritual one where life is valued and every life is precious, and you know, the expectation is that you as a woman, that's your job. Your job is to have babies. Your job is to reproduce.
Yeah.
And continue, continue the family kind of thing. It does put a massive pressure on, and so in some cases, some women might really not be able to let their family know what they've been through.
For sure.
Having got pregnant in the first place, maybe that was you know, if they're from a particularly kind of strict, not necessarily strict religious, but just, you know, kind of traditional background where the expectation is that you marry and then you have children. If they got pregnant outside of wedlock, or it was a one-night stand, or it was an occasion where, you know, maybe you were victim of date rape, drug, and you didn't know that you'd actually had sex, or the sex was unprotected and you thought it was protected for many different reasons, and you become pregnant and there's no way that you can tell family, and it actually does go against your own kind of values and morals, but you know that if your feeling is that if I continue with this pregnancy, this is not, I'm going to be, my family are going to throw me out, the church is going to throw me out, I'm going to lose my friends, and you've got to weigh up that choice, and so the only choice you have is to go for a termination, but it's conflicting with your own moral stance. You carry that. You know,
that's the thing. Like,
immensely burdensome.
100%. Like, if you are religious, I mean, you know, I'm a Christian, so I know that, you know, if there's any situation anyone was in where they were facing these conflicting times, that's when the church family should come in, or you know, whichever religion you're in, that's when the community should come in to support you the best way that they can, and just help you through the process, you know, because it's
and
difficult.
it actually might be that church family would be there for you, but your belief is not that they would be. Your fear is that it would be the worst case scenario. So you're backed into a corner, and you don't have a choice. And because you're carrying with that guilt, shame. As well.
Shame is another one. You know, I read with this website it's called whatsyourgrief.com. Very good website. And they were saying that guilt is something we feel within ourselves based on our own perception that we could or should have done in a certain situation. Shame is something we feel based on our perception that with this thing we could or should have done something differently. Shame with abortion becomes more prevalent depending on person's religion, politics, and support system, which is again, you know, it's a big thing.
It is a big thing, and shame can stay with you for a long time.
Definitely.
But again, that's something that maybe you feel that you need to suppress, you need to ignore, or you've just got, you know, you deserve to feel shame, and you're carrying that thought with you, which you don't.
It's harmful, you know.
It's extremely harmful.
Because you're constantly blaming yourself. You're always in this guilt state. Then you always feel as though I'm just so alone. I'm just so isolated. Like no one just understands. I can't reach out to anybody. No one's going to accept me for what I've done, for the decision that I've made.
A decision that might have been made 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you know, when your circumstances were very, very different. But it can leave you, you know, guilt, shame, leaves you with a sense of worthlessness. And you know, I don't deserve sort of to be loved, to be respected, really, because I have done this really bad thing. That might be something that you carry with you.
Definitely. And even with that, they probably feel as though they don't deserve anything good in life that comes their way. Based on the decision that they've made ages ago or whenever it was.
So again, that's, you know, it's really important to work through those feelings, really, and to be able to talk about those feelings, so that
Definitely.
you can get a truer understanding of them, um, and learn some self-forgiveness in those circumstances.
100%. You know, forgiving yourself for what you've done is the most, it's a powerful thing, and it's an important thing
It's
because it
very
allows you to move
important.
on.
Yeah, but whatever kind of challenging emotion that we have that is saying to us we're not good enough, we don't deserve good things. Anything that is telling us that is not good for us, and we need to resolve it.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge that that's what's going on, but actually then look and reflect and just be forgiving of ourselves.
And it's also important to make sure that with abortion, again, it's a disenfranchised loss, meaning society doesn't really recognize it as a loss, like I mentioned earlier, like a loss of
We
a
don't
parent.
recognise it as a valid loss because it was a choice that you made.
Yeah.
So why are you sad about it?
Exactly.
You made that choice. It was your decision. You're in control of it.
100%.
So, crack on, get on with life.
Yeah.
So it is really disenfranchised, and that's why a lot of women actually don't talk about it as well. But the same sites that you mentioned earlier will also support women in those circumstances as well, because it is still a loss.
Yeah.
If you are still grieving, and you can actually, it can be helpful to do some of those things that acknowledge that, okay, this would have been when the birthday, when that baby's birthday was. If it was a boy, I would have called, but if it was a girl, I would have called. If things were different, so you can still actually acknowledge that there was that there was a life there that has been lost, because it is still a loss for you.
Definitely. And it's also giving yourself the right to grieve as well.
Absolutely.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
Like obviously society doesn't recognize it. Yeah. Society doesn't recognize it. But then, like you said, Bernie, it's important that you acknowledge the loss. Name the baby if you want to name the baby. Remembering their birthday. When they would have been
whatever
born.
it is that's right, whatever it is that gives you comfort.
Yes.
So you can actually acknowledge what happened, and where you were at the time.
Definitely. Create a memory box if you want, with all the stuff that you would want to put in there to remember all the little things that you would do when you've lost someone. Just maybe do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about looking at what's the right thing for me, what's going to help me.
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned before, the same sites that we mentioned that we're putting in the link below can be used for the same. If you've had an abortion, you still need help and support that's available. Also, just to note that these sites are for the UK only. So if you live in a different country and you're watching this, make sure you check out different websites and support groups within your country so you can get the help and support that you need. Bernie, thank you so much again. This has been awesome. It's been insightful, and I hope that women and anyone who's watching this will get the help and support that they need and just learn something new.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Have you again soon. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.